Welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series, where we show you how to turn your expertise into a book that actually drives results. I'm Jonathan Lautermilch, CEO of Smart Publishing.
And I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor of Smart Publishing. This is the podcast for business owners, coaches, and professionals who don't just want to be authors. They want to use a book to build authority, attract clients, and create real opportunities.
Each week, we break down what actually works when it comes to writing, publishing, and leveraging a book the right way. Sometimes it's just us pulling back the curtain on our process. Other times we're joined by authors, industry experts, sharing how they've used a book to grow their business. If you've ever thought about writing a book, or you already have one and wanted to do more for you, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I am Renée Lautermilch, one of your hosts, and I am joined by...
the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Lautermilch, head honcho of Smart Publishing.
Yeah, so welcome to another episode where you got both of your co-hosts, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, if I didn't mention that. And today is episode 59. It is the promised part 2 episode of Bestsellers Get Attention, but Best Helpers Close Deals. So like you probably know if you listen to that episode and then the interlude episode that I created, we have switched from Riverside because Riverside kept cutting Jonathan's audio and video off about, 2/3 of the way through every episode we recorded. So we are now using Squadcast, which I didn't know was part of Descript, which we already have Descript. So we got to save some money. We didn't have to sign up for anything new. It was pretty cool. Jonathan's gonna be really happy about those P&L results right there. We're saving $24 a month, $24 a month. Take it to the Sizzler.
Makes me think of that little Dickie song. Gotta save that money.
We're saving that money and we're taking it to the Golden Corral. You can have some of their hot fudge chocolate fountain.
Oh my God.
It's got some dust in it, some
Gross.
hairs, whatever else it's picked up. Anyways, we are coming at you with the content that got cut out of that episode, which Jonathan never got to. Well, he did get into how to create a best helper and some of the mindset around it, but it all got cut off. So we're back on a better platform to deliver it to you this week. But before we get there, I just, I always got to open these things with, a little discussion. We got a new grill.
Did.
A new grill.
We did. The grill master got an upgrade.
So for those of you out there who are part of some of these large organizations that spend all this money on putting together these team building retreats and all this stuff where, like Jonathan and I do team building all the time. You know what the best team building is? Go buy some furniture from IKEA and just you and your team, put it together. That's one of the best. You don't have to spend like $300,000 and all this money on these fancy schmancy team building exercises that like Deloitte and these other, PricewaterhouseCoopers or whatever they're called put together for you. Go buy a table from IKEA and if your team can put that together, they'll be better off for it.
So I'm a firm believer of there's two things that will reveal the nature of your relationship with someone. First one is build something together, like Renee's talking about. It will definitely expose whether y'all have got a healthy relationship or y'all got some things y'all need to work on at the end of the day. The second thing is actually go on a road trip with someone. If you can go on a long trip with someone and come back and not want to strangle them, then you're probably in a good relationship. If you come back after a long trip and you were fighting and bickering the whole time, yeah, you probably got some things you need to work on. So, yeah, building stuff and long trips will definitely expose some of the gaps in those relationships from my experience. But, hey, we got it done. We put it together. We've been doing this thing called life long enough. You're the engineer with the plan, and I'm just the meathead doing the manual labor. It's a good system.
We've done both of those things lately. We went on a long trip out to Oklahoma, out to Broken Bow in Oklahoma, and we didn't just put a grill together. We put a grill together in 90-degree temperatures.
We did.
So,
We
I
did.
mean, that is some next level team building. I'm sorry, but all these consultants out there charging out the wahoo for team building events. This is all you got to do. This is some of the best team building activity that you can get. Okay, let's see if it paid off by getting started with actually working as a team here with our podcast. Where we cut off last time was how to create a best helper, but I think maybe some of the folks listening right now did not get to listen to that episode. If you didn't, go back to episode 57, listen to it. You will want to. But for those who are going ahead and moving ahead by listening to the rest of this episode, Jonathan, can you just start off by painting the picture at a high level? What are we talking about when we talk about best helper?
So I'm just going to share what I covered in my roundtable call that I did today, which I do every 2 weeks on LinkedIn. And, I had quite a few aspiring authors on that call, kind of asking the same questions that you're asking right now. They don't know where to start, and they don't have a lot of clarity on their book, much less like, what am I going to use this book for once it's done? And, there's really two questions that I start with everyone. And I know I beat this drum to death, but I feel like I can't say this enough, is one, you need to be able to answer specifically, who is my book helping and what are they specifically helping them with? So many people start off with more of the fluffy, vague, romantic idea of oh, it's going to help people, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But you need to be able to specifically help one type of person solve one type of problem, because that's where the real value comes from, right? If you're going to write a book, unless you're in the fiction space, you're really not writing this to entertain people. You're writing this to actually lead them and guide them and give them something tactical and tangible that they can actually extract from your book and go apply in their business, go apply in their life, and actually get some momentum in that area, right? That's the first step to making sure that your book is actually what I call a best helper, which is obviously helping the reader navigate or solve a specific problem that they're running into, right? So that's the first part. The second part is your book is not just the best helper for the reader, it should be a best helper for you. You're going through this whole process, which let's be honest, Renee, it's not easy. It's very daunting. It's why less than 1% of people will ever write a book within their lifetime currently. So being able to specifically answer for yourself too on how do I want this book to specifically impact me by the opportunities that I want this book to create moving forward, right? So before you start anything, you've got to have absolute clarity on those two questions. Otherwise, you're in for a bumpy road throughout this process. And if you do get across the finish line with the book, now you've got the whole road to navigate on, well, how am I actually going to use this to create a real impact, right? Now, after you get clarity on there, it really comes down to the how, right? And that's actually the really simple part. And I'll share an example. Let me grab this real quick. And I know, Renee, you've heard me talk about this probably hundreds of times at this point. But this book, Extreme Ownership, written by Leif Babin and Jocko Willenick, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was really the model that really made things click for me as a reader. And ironically, as a publisher, I'm not a super reader. I like to listen to most of my content. So to get me to sit down and read a book cover to cover, it's got to be a really good book. And I've read that book twice cover to cover. And I'll share with you the structure and why I believe it's so impactful. The reason that book really impacted me from not just the value I got from it, but just the ability to read it and actually be excited about reading it, was it's all based on principles. So each chapter has a unique principle that it's driving home and then breaks down how the reader can apply that. And in this book's instance, they're talking about leadership development. So I can just open this book right now. First random chapter, check the ego. That's appropriate for me as you go through this. And once again, that whole chapter is themed on that one specific principle. And when you start with the principle, it allows you to have clarity on the story part that you want to tell with it. And I see so many authors, and you know this, Renee, with what you're doing, actually navigating their story, is if you start with the story, it's a lot messier to know, where do I start? Where do I end? What parts do I leave? What parts do I cut out? Oh, how do I actually turn this into a Mr. Miyagi type of teaching so they actually get value from it? It just gets really messy if you go story first. If you go principle first, though, that allows you to align what story you want to tell that best demonstrates that principle. So obviously with this book and the nature of it, it's all about combat and Navy SEALs and Afghanistan and snipers and suicide bombers and all this high pack action, right? Which draws the reader in. And as you're going through that story and you're seeing that principle applied in this situation, you know, when I got through that first chapter, Renee, the first thought I had was like, this is great, but I'm not a Navy SEAL and I'm not out here fighting the Taliban. So how do I apply this to my life as a small business owner? Which is why I'm so grateful they had the foresight of attaching that principle breakdown part, which then goes into a case study, an example with steps on, here's what this looks like in the boardroom. What this looks like for a small business owner. And that's what bridged the gap for me. And there's been so many principles I've been able to pull from this book that's honestly made me a lot better leader at the end of the day, and it's created a ranting, raving fan. That's why I talk about this book so much. And then there's other examples I can give too, where those books led to me doing business with the author, like Apex specifically, Renee. That started me buying Social Media Millions, if you remember. And over the next 5 years, I would spend a lot of money, let's just put it that way, with that organization. But it started with the book. And that book, because I got so much value from it, it left me in a place where, like, wow, if I got that from just reading the book, what would I get if I joined the mastermind or went to the workshop or did all this? And it made this really organic funnel where it did all the heavy lifting and made it easy for the sales guy's job, which was Drewby at the time, to literally just cross the T's and dot the I's and just validate that they are who they say they are. And once again, into a lot of business for them. So that's really kind of the nutshell of like creating a best helpers. If you structure it that way, it'll make sure that it does all the heavy lifting for the reader. And it'll also help create clarity for you as the author on how do you want to tell the story and what parts do you want to include and how you actually leaving people better by your book.
Yeah, now for those of you listening, I hope you're tracking and that predominantly the type of writer that Jonathan is talking about, these are people who are writing a book as a way to support their consultancy, as a way to support their coaching, as a way to support, he just made the example of their mastermind, as a way to support their business in some way. So if you're out there and you're like, but how can I not start with my story if I want to write a memoir about my life? Well, then, yeah, in that case, you do start with your story, but there's probably not a business lead-in for you. However, if there is, I would encourage you to think about your memoir as more of an instructional memoir, which if you're writing a memoir because you want to get more speaking opportunities, that is when you do need to go and start to apply some intentionality to it. Like I think about a lot of keynote speakers that I've seen who had memoir-driven material. They still structured it around principles because they knew, okay, these keynote speeches are going to need to align with what an organization that is hiring me is trying to impress upon its folks. So there's a really good book, I've got it back here on my shelf somewhere, written about It's Your Ship. And it's a Navy admiral who wrote it. And he might have been more than an admiral. Anyways, big deal in the Navy, was really, really successful in the Navy as well, leading entire ship crew teams. And it all relates back to kind of the same thing that extreme leadership does, leadership within business. Of course, it's memoir. A lot of it's his story, but it's not just his story straight through with things that have nothing to do with that through point. So, if you are thinking like, well, my story is primarily memoir. Yeah, there are pure memoirs out there for sure. But if you want your book to lead to opportunity, maybe that's more of a passion play for you, not necessarily your opportunity-based book that you're leading into.
Well, think of it this way. Like, here's a great example. Roger Ward, who just got started with us, I'd say within the last 30 days. he's coming in very much with like this wild story that he's come through. Once again, I'm not going to spill the beans on his story. Y'all can buy his book when it comes out. But he's got this crazy story, right, as we've gone through, and that's where he's kind of starting from. But what I ended up doing when I was meeting with him was after each story arc he wanted to tell, we pulled out, well, what's the lesson? What was the thing that you learned in this season of your life that you could share with someone else that could get value from this so they can avoid doing things the hard way or the pitfalls that you fell into during that season of your life? And that's where you have to really channel your inner Yoda, Mr. Miyagi, whatever analogy you want to use with it, where you can pull out those principles. So once again, it's not just a story that's like entertaining, but it's something that provides real value that people can learn from your unique life experience. And I truly believe that every single person has these experiences so that they can share that with other people to help them with their own journey at the end of the day. So you can reverse engineer it either way how you go about it. I've just found if you start with the principles, that almost works like your internal chat GPT prompt, what story you want to tell and how you want to tell it, because now you have an end focal point versus a lot of times, Renée, I know you've ran into this, you get into the story like that's a whole bee's nest that can turn into, and a lot of times people end up going on tangents and it's like, hey, that has nothing to do with that part comes later. So once again, just from a clarity perspective, the principles will help you tremendously in terms of that focus at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I do also want to mention something that Jonathan said a little bit ago about a book being a massive and kind of daunting project when you don't do it with expert help. I just wanted to add that it doesn't have to be. A book can be written in as little as an hour a week, 12 weeks, and you're done.
Well,
it can be very simple.
It's clarity creates speed. You know, I learned that in my first book, Groomed for Greatness, before we decided to go in on being a publishing agency back in 2021, I want to say. And it's because, like, if you're not clear, it's real easy to get stuck in the weeds and not take action, and the action you do take doesn't come out right. So then you get that negative feedback loop through the process. And this is where I find most people that are like, yeah, I've been working on this book for 10 years and they've got like half a manuscript. And, once again, if you take one step back to line up the shot, it allows you to take 3, 4, 5 steps forward a lot faster as you go through that. You just got to ask yourself some questions and take the time to like actually map it out before you go out there and just start running and gunning and putting stuff on paper.
Yeah. I will say that is definitely where we see most people get caught up as they get lost within their own story, and they're trying to start in the middle of their story, which is, like Jonathan said, backing out and lining up your shot. Like the first thing, like, what do you want to accomplish with this book? If you can't be crystal clear on that and then align the way that your book is designed to support that, then of course you're going to get lost. And then I just think a little bit differently too. I'm a formally trained instructional designer. And so by just the way my brain works and the way I've been trained, I'm able to look at a lot of information and create a really clear structure with it and wrangle that information in a clear structure that teaches people things, that gives people actionable and clear information and takeaways that they can take away. So I sometimes take that for granted, but that's probably the number one thing that I use as a chief editor is all of that time and experience that I've had in instructional design, because that being able to think in concepts and being able to chunk things up and being able to categorize things really clearly serves well when you're creating a chapter map and a structure for a book. Let's talk about some of the mindset shifts here. We get a lot of people coming to us asking about how many royalties they'll make and how much money they'll make off of their book. Why is that not the right way to think about it?
Well, to kind of touch on what you're just saying too, which kind of ties into this is, one thing I learned early on in my entrepreneur career is that actually even before then, back when I was just in sales, was what's the result of the result? Most people can tell you the result that they want. So for example, I want to write a book, right? Or I want to do X. Great. What you need to ask yourself is, well, what does that create? The real thing that you want. For example, it's like, hey, I want to make more money. Great. Why? what are you going to use that money for, right? How are you going to specifically deploy that to make your life better or to help those around you, right? And when you really sit back and ask yourself, what's the result of the result? Once again, it allows you to get really clear and speed up that process on what's going to get me to the real thing that I want. So to kind of get into the mindset with this, obviously you make money selling your books, which is great. You get royalties from it. Amazon gives you 70% of the digital, 60% of the physical. You get into Audible and Spotify, you're getting 70% of what you're charging on there, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but you have to keep in mind, if your goal is like, I want to be a full-time author, right? That's all I want to do. You need to understand you're going to have to move a lot of units in order to achieve that goal. So what you line up in terms of your strategy and who you partner with needs to align with that, right? So if you're planning on self-publishing and you want to live off the royalties, I'll just be frank with you, you got a better chance of becoming a professional athlete than you do doing that, right? Just because the barrier to entry to writing a book is very low. Not many people do it, but nearly everyone can, right? And that's why the fiction space is so saturated with so many stay-at-home moms wanting to become the next J.K. Rowling, which God bless you. I'm not here to crap on anyone's dream. I hope you hit a home run and you get all the things and you get movie deals and merchandise and all that stuff, and that's great. But the reality of it is you're going to have a far better opportunity getting the result of writing a book, which once again is that speaking opportunities, is that lead generation. Those are the things that are going to lead to something that you have more control, that's going to allow you to be able to get to that goal a lot faster, because the book ultimately is really a tool. Renee, I'm sure you have the same wish I did. I wish we could just publish books and it was like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams. You build it and they just come. That would be great. Remember back when we did websites and people, I just get a website and people show up and they sign up and they buy stuff, or funnels, right? When we were just doing funnels, remember those good old days? And people think you just build a magical funnel and it's on the internet and the right people just show up and then they buy from you. Once again, a book's no different. A book is just unique because less than 1% of people do it. So anyone can build a website, anyone can get a funnel. What you want to look at is, how do I separate myself in the marketplace? You've got blue ocean territory, you've got red ocean territory. The red ocean is where all the competition at. That's doing what everyone else is doing, right? Yes, can you be successful? Absolutely, but you better prepare to fight, scrape, and claw and compete with a lot of other people. The opportunity in business life is, where do I find the blue ocean territories in my life where there's very few competition, where if I just show up, I'm going to have a way better chance of succeeding because I'm willing to do something a little bit different, a little bit outside the box that most people just frankly aren't willing or unable to do at the end of the day. So having a book, much less a best-selling one, puts you in that 1% category, right? Doesn't mean you're going to magically just get all the opportunities just coming to you and knocking at your door just because you did it, but it certainly gives you a way to stand out from everyone else. And if you deploy that with the right strategy and right methodology, it's not if you're going to win, it's when you're going to win.
Yeah, and a few episodes back, we did an episode about the long game, how you leverage your book over the long term. And that really paints a picture of, once you have a book, Jonathan said it's a tool, right? So how do you use it as a tool? So go back, listen to that episode if you're wanting to know some more details about that. But ultimately, what he's saying, the book is not the product. It is a marketing asset. So if you want to think about what kind of tool is it, it is specifically a marketing asset. So, if you're a business owner out there, hopefully you've seen your income statement, aka your profit and loss report, that shows, everything that's coming into the business and then everything that's going out of the business. The problem is, the way most people think about a book is in terms of the revenue line. This is going to generate direct revenue through book sales to me. That's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it as a marketing expense. We spend money on marketing because marketing results in revenue, right? But the money, marketing is not the product. The same thing. The book is not the product. You spend the money to make the book and then to use the book and leverage it in the ways that Jonathan talks about in the episode that I just mentioned. And the result of that is bringing more sales, more clients, more opportunities into your business so that you can make more revenue through your primary means of making revenue, which is always going to be more efficient and more effective, whether it's consulting, whether it's courses, whether it's, building websites, doing services, whatever it may be.
Well, I'll tell you this, Renee, we can go down memory lane as you've watched me over the last coming up on 8 years with this whole online entrepreneurship thing. And you've been there for the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, to me trying this and me trying that. And you've watched me do literally dozens of different tactics and strategies to create awareness, right? From lead generation to marketing. Like, I've done webinars, I've done ebooks, I've done PDFs, I've done workshop calls, I've done cold DMing, I've done cold calling, I've done Facebook ads, I've done it all. I remember doodle videos. Remember when I was like, this is gonna be it, honey, the doodle video is gonna put us at the top. And that was the worst decision. That was so dumb looking back at that, right? That was me in my shiny object phase, not knowing my ass from my elbow when it came to business, right? Ultimately trying to take a shortcut, which I could do a whole nother episode on that. But the one thing I discovered through that whole process was, once I was encouraged to write my first book, Groom for Greatness, which inspired you to write yours and really set off this whole chain of events that put us at where we're at today, that book was by far the most effective way to create awareness and opportunities for me. And what I enjoyed about it the most was it was a power move, not a force move. Force moves work, but the problem is they require you to put in continuous work and effort over and over and over again. And yeah, it'll work, but you're basically creating a job for yourself.
Define a force move for our listeners who don't understand.
So a force move's like following up with the leads, right? Like, if you don't follow up with them, then you're probably not going to create opportunities. And that takes time, effort, and energy from your behalf, right? And that's something you just got to put in time to do that, okay? Or like physically going out and marketing locally. Like, I have to physically go do that, right? The whole goal for anyone is to create an attraction-based system that either takes no effort, which is ideal, or at least very minimal effort to create the most amount of impact, right? So when I wrote my first book, I did that because I wanted to separate myself, because this is back when I was doing business coaching for fitness professionals and gym owners. And once again, as you know, Renee, there's coaches of coaches of coaches of coaches, and everyone's a freaking guru. So how do you stand out? How do you get people to look at you a little bit differently? Oh, great, here's another guru trying to sell me on their services. Well, that's why I wrote my book. I wanted to stand out and add real value and get people bought in by understanding my story and my journey. And once I put that book out there and I just got intentional about who I was putting it in from, like within the first 30 days, I closed 6 consulting deals at $6,000 a pop. So I made $18,000 immediately after the book release. So I was like, great, whoo. Got my ROI, because that was the first thing I wanted to make sure. It was like, I got to get a return on my investment. And that was back when I didn't even have a real strategy. I was just out there hustling, right? But I share that with you because through that strategy, I didn't have to force these people. I didn't have to Jordan Belfort them with sales magic and wizardry to convince them to do business with me. I just got them the book. The book did all the heavy lifting and just asked like, hey, how are you enjoying the book? If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. And then organically, very quickly, got those 3 sales, right? And then that's not even to mention what we did with the 1 Hour Author. We did 10 deals at our original pricing at $6,000, same strategy, brought in $60,000 within 30 days off a $300 investment of giving the book away. So I share that because if you're going to go out there and build your business, regardless if you write a book or not, it needs to be attraction based, right? So you can actually scale your time and build an actual company. And through my experience, I found that writing books is the most effective way in order to do so. Because once again, you're in blue ocean territory. And that was what made me so passionate about writing books, outside of obviously helping showcase people's stories and helping change people's lives and all those things that come along with it. But from the business side, yeah, it just made complete sense to me.
Blue ocean, for those of you listening, it just means that you're separated from the pack. Red ocean, there's a bunch of sharks in the water. They're all fighting over the same baby seal or
there's actually a book.
Dolphin.
I think the book's called Blue Ocean Tactics or Blue Ocean Strategy. I think that's the title. I'll look it up. I'll drop it in the notes. But I read that book about 10 years ago, and it changed my life. I actually talked about how Cirque du Soleil created their own market, which I thought was really fascinating, combining kind of magic with an entire different thing.
Yeah. And of course, you get all the imitators that pop up, but once you're a market leader, you're a market leader, and, you've kind of established all of that. All right, let's start to land the plane for our listeners.
Land the plane. Where do you want me to land it?
Well, this is a 2-part episode. Technically, it was 2 parts with a little interlude in the middle, but we've been talking about, best sellers versus best helpers, and why, best helper is ultimately the way to go. So, what do you want to, what famous parting words do you have?
Here's what I'll say. If you're going to write a book, write it so it actually helps people, and be clear on that. Once again, you can write a book and make it bestseller. It's actually a lot simpler than you'd ever imagine. But if your book sucks, I'll just say the quiet part out loud, but it's a bestseller, that's like putting lipstick on a pig. That's great. You'll have that one high, but it won't bear you any fruit moving forward. And it will just become a checkbox, something that you did, but nothing that really, truly changes and moves the needle in your life. If you write something going, here's who I'm exactly going to help, here's how I'm going to help them, and you just give it away. Give all the information away. Don't try to hoard it. Don't try to go, here's the secret. You got to buy this or do this if you want the rest of it. Just give it away and go out there with a servant attitude with the knowledge that you're giving and make it simple. I promise you, you're not only going to get messages of how people are giving you feedback on how the book is actually impacting and changing their lives, which, by the way, just reinforces why you need to keep doing it. You will get sales opportunities. You will get business opportunities from that moving forward if you just follow up with those people and ask them if you like my help moving forward and how you can continue to be a service to them. But you got to write the book. You got to take out the genius that's inside your head or the expertise that you have, which I guarantee you have. I don't care who you are. Every single person on this planet has something special, unique to share with the world. You just need to get clear on what that is. Put that out there, get in front of the right people, and I promise you it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you at the end of the day and create some world-changing opportunities for you. So write the damn book.
Good deal. Stop thinking about it. Just do it. Life's not slowing down for any of us.
It's too short.
Press pause.
And also, your story's always being written, so don't tell yourself, well, the book's not done because I haven't lived through that part of my journey yet. Your story is always being written. There's always going to be another chapter. Write the story that you can write right now, and guess what? You can always write another one later and turn that into a series.
Yeah, you can't write the book if you're dead. So that's usually what I tell people as a response to that. If you wait till you're dead, it's too late. That's when your story stops.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, if you want to find us, we would love for you to connect with us. We're both on Facebook, Lautermilch, Lautermilch. He's Jonathan, and I'm Renee. Jonathan is also really big all over LinkedIn, so go and add him there as well. You can also find us at smartpublishingservices.com. Our website has a lot of really great educational.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's got a lot of great educational content on there. We've got a blog. We've got some courses on different things, including a fun course on how to write a children's book. We were just talking about writing another one last night. We'll see. We need We'll see. We've got some good ideas.
We do those for
We do those for funsies, and there are lots of funsies.
yeah.
If you would so honor us by taking 60 seconds of your time to rate and review this show, it helps to get it out in front of more listeners who can benefit from this content. Also, we'd love to hear what kind of questions you guys might have. You can leave those in the comments, and we love to answer listening questions. And if you have not already, subscribe to this show. What are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. And make sure that you listen to this show where you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. All right. Any famous last words, Jonathan?
That was a damn good show.
It's a great show.
Good show.
All right. As we always say, keep writing your story because the world needs your voice.